Let's bring in criminal defense attorney and litigator Stephen Vinick now.
Good morning, Marky. This is a very, very tense, tough situation. You may have really what's going to be a standoff between the federal government and law enforcement and the state law government and state law enforcement. But where it's headed right now is they have to do the investigation first. I think that what you've heard from the federal government immediately was to try to justify and defend its actions, and they've done so really without the full investigation. And what you're not getting a lot about or even seeing is what was leading up to that. The other thing I think, which is going to be vital with the investigation by the Department of Justice, is going to be the fact that the law enforcement, they're not allowed to use more force than is necessary to achieve or effectuate their goal. And you're going to hear a lot about this officer's training and all of the alternatives they had before he pulled out his firearm and shot.
Yeah, you've seen the video. You've heard the very different takes on what has happened. And there's two very different camps. You have the camp that says the ICE agent was justified because this woman weaponized her car. You have another camp saying, look at her tires. She was pulling away from the agents at a slow speed. What do you think? What do you make of the video, and what do you think the final ruling will be in the end?
I have looked at the video about 50 times, and I've seen both angles, and I do not see this officer in any type of an immediate danger. I don't see anything that would require him to pull out his firearm. I don't get it. And I think that what you're having here are ICE officers who are not trained to have this much resistance. They're not. I mean, until this past year, ICE worked at not in these huge types of droves that like the National Guard works. And I don't think these ICE officers are properly trained. And I don't see it. I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but I don't see what the immediate danger is. And I certainly don't see a need for their firearm to be pulled out. The interesting thing is the officer who is right there on the door. Okay. He didn't do anything. He didn't have any firearm out or anything like that.
And tell me about that officer who pulled the door, because then you watch the video, the car pulls off to the right. What do you also make of the fact that the remaining officers there are kind of on the left-hand side of the screen? They don't run toward the car. They don't run toward their fellow agent who's just pulled the trigger. You see them all right here walk off toward the left and out of the camera. What's your take on that and what that means?
They didn't think it was an immediate danger either. They didn't. Not one of them pulled out a firearm or even a taser or anything like that. And the officer who is approaching the door of the vehicle never takes out any pepper spray or mace or anything like that to just simply try to disable the person. There's just so many alternatives that were available, tragically, to these officers, and they went with the most lethal force, and that was what you see now.
And if that officer had opened the door and it opened, they get the woman out, they arrest her. I mean, what would she have been charged with? Obstruction, traffic violations? I mean, it certainly would have not have ended like this.
No, that you have an unarmed individual who's in a vehicle. The vehicle was not weaponized, and you have she would have been charged with obstructing or hindering police officers or law enforcement. Maybe the traffic violation. That's it. At the most, if they really wanted to, they could, with the officer who was the shooter or even the one on the door, they could have charged this woman with assault on them. But this is not felony assault. This is, I can't see it as felony assault. This is, I believe, just simple assault.
And just a few seconds left. Will the early reaction from both sides on this have any influence on the case, influencing the public at all? What say you regarding what we've heard from both sides?
I think that everybody is rushing to judgment from the federal government. I'd like to say that the DOJ will do a very independent investigation. I hope that the DOJ comes up with the same result that the state law enforcement in Minneapolis ends up with. But honestly, sadly, I don't see that happening. I think they're going to come up with two different conclusions.
Just a tragic moment all around. Stephen Vinick, thank you for your time this morning and giving me so much of it. Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you, Marky. Have a nice day.
You as well.